Yo, JD here, Tyrolemus, and as you can see by the video title here today, this is going to be a discussion video, and this is going to be on the equal cars debate, which is something I didn't actually bring on myself. It's something that people have been asking me quite a lot recently if they feel the cars are equal, because they feel the cars are different and they feel some cars are a lot better than others. So I actually did decide to just go on sprint mode yesterday and just online lobbies and test out all the cars and just see how they feel and what I prefer. And I'm just going to give you my feedback on what I actually feel about this situation. And please note, before I even start this video, please don't really pay attention to lap times. This is a 5-lap race, and in sprint mode it's 5-lap races. 11.1 or a really low 11 is a good time, so that's a time really to aim for. But I've done 11.1 in every single car, every single group or a car that belongs to the engine group. So you got the McLaren, you got the Mercedes, and then you got the Renault cars, and you got Ferrari powered, and then you got the sole McLaren powered car. And I've done an 11.1 at least, with a 10.9 being my best in a certain car, but I've done 11.1 at least, so that shows there's no real difference in the raw outright pace between the cars. So I just really want you to pay attention to how the cars are reacting in this video, and I'll be able to go in a little bit more detail on the specific cars after this, or after a few clips of this. But for the Mercedes here, it feels really nice. Managed to get 11.0 in that, so yeah, that feels like a pretty good car, or the characteristics feels really nice to drive. And now they're in the McLaren, and for this car, really, just to short analysis on it, really, it feels really understeery, but the traction feels really good. So you can see through here, going through low speed corners, it's actually okay, but through the high speed, that's when it really feels it suffers a little bit and changes direction at high speed. So you can see for those section, a little bit tighter than the Mercedes. Mercedes is a little bit snatchy through there, but going through here now, a little bit slow into there, but get really good traction off this. A little bit of a squiggle, but still you can be really aggressive here. But this is the corner where I feel is a little bit unnecessary. So going a little bit out wide there, it just doesn't feel as pointy as a Mercedes. A Mercedes, I would say, is probably not the best at anything, but it's definitely not the worst at anything in terms of traction, turning, stability, braking, that sort of thing. It feels quite planted, but it feels it can get away from me at times. It feels a little bit understeery, but not too oversteery. I would say it probably feels one of the most balanced cars that I've driven in the equal car set. So for this, as I said, you can just be really aggressive on the power in the McLaren. It just feels that it's almost impossible to spin him in a way. And later in this video, I'll just be talking about how I feel this could potentially give you an advantage in a race setting, because obviously in 1 lap pace, the cars are really close, but this could actually affect tyre wear. This could affect your consistency, and I'll be able to talk about what cars I feel are probably going to be the most consistent, I feel, at the end of this video. But now we're in the Renault, the Bumblebee Renault, and we've got the Red Bull as well. I didn't test every single car in this video, but just one car for each of the engine groups. And this car for me feels the heaviest. It feels really heavy, but I actually really like that because you can feel the cars through the corners, and the traction feels really good. And it just the stability of this car is probably, I would say, the easiest to be consistent, I would say, in this car. It just feels, compared to the Haas, which we'll be moving on to next time, and the Ferrari and the Sauber, compared to that, it just feels like a ton heavier. The understeer is not, well, it's pretty powerful in this car. It definitely has not got the best turning. I can promise you that for sure. I'd say it's got definitely a little bit better turning than what the McLaren has, but the traction is just not as good as the McLaren. So that's what I'd say. I'd say it's really close between them two of how the cars actually feel. But I feel you can really just attack the corners and really just feel the car through the corners. I know it sounds a little bit gay, but that is how I feel when I drive this car. I feel it's really easy to do a quick lap time and this car. And as you can see, I think that's 11.1. I think that is 11.1. I think we went out wide on the last corner as well. So that was pretty easy to pick up. And now we're going to be in the Haas, the car that I actually use. And I was interested to do this test myself, because not trying to expose the Haas as being like a crap car or anything, because it's not. It's probably got the best change of direction out of any car on the game. in terms of high speed change of direction. I feel it's really good. Low speed, it's not actually that great at turning, so we'll be able to see coming to here a little bit of understeer here, a little bit going out wide, but you can see the car, it always feels when you're on a traction, the initial traction's okay, but as you're actually going up through the revs, it just seems the car always wants to get away from you. And I just feel from playing this game that the Ferrari powered cars seems to be a little bit more oversteery than the other cars, my opinion, and that's something I've been really struggling with in AOR recently, especially in qualifying. It's I just never feel that I can really push the car. I always feel I'm just trying to save the car all the time when I'm going through the high speed sections on the throttle, and that's the real thing I get through here. So you can see a little bit of understeer once again, but still the car is really quick, and for some people you really have to get used to this. If you're not used to driving a car like this, then you're really going to have to get used to just looking after the rear. And the traction in these cars between the different engine providers, I feel you can just be so much more aggressive in some cars than you can in the other one. And this one, it really works in the Haas. If you're really cautious on the throttle, you'll still go get as good traction, but you just have to be so much more delicate on the throttle in order to get good traction. But in comparison to the Renault, I think on the Renault you can literally almost just go almost full throttle very early, and it will still grip up through the corners. So you just really have to drive it. It's a different characteristic between cars, and as you can see by lap times here, I think we all got 1s and 2s apart from Mercedes, but that was just a really good lap. I'm pretty sure I'd be able to do that in every single car given enough time. And this was just topping in a lobby and just doing the best, just doing a decent lap, and just hopefully just showing you guys the different characteristics, because I feel some cars are just a lot more understeery than others, and other cars are just a lot more oversteery. And we're just seeing gameplay footage of me around Brazil here in the sprint mode in the Renault. But it's just, I just really want to hear your thoughts on what you actually think, because this is something I could actually bring to Codemasters' attention, because I've been told when I went there and by other guys as well, that the cars are all exactly the same, and I do believe they're all the same pace. I really do believe that. But I do believe myself, and I don't think it is a placebo effect, basically thinking that it's in your head. I really do feel that you have to drive the cars quite a bit differently, and I may do a test, because when your tyres go off, and if you've got a really oversteery car and your tyres are going off, and it's quite difficult on traction and around certain tracks as well. This track's actually okay. This is quite a short lap, but this track's quite a good test to do this. But around other tracks where you may need, it may be a lot more beneficial to just be, it's like traction heavy tracks really. It's kind of hard to describe, because as I said, I don't feel cars actually have better traction, but I just feel it's a lot easier to apply that traction in other cars, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So just a quick rundown. I feel in the Mercedes, I feel it's a little bit understeery, and it can snap on the oversteer as well. But I believe the Ferrari power cars have a lot more oversteer in that car. I feel it's pretty good balance between the understeer and oversteer, quite stable under braking, but can still get away from you. I feel it's quite an easy-ish car to drive. So I'd just say it's probably just not the best at everything, but definitely not the worst at anything, which all the other cars are either best at something or the worst at something. And so then moving on to the Renault, I feel personally that feels like it's the heaviest car. I feel it's probably the easiest to be consistent with, because you can really just feel the car, and I would say it's probably got the best balance. I would say actually the McLaren's probably got a little bit better traction, but the Renault is basically a McLaren with just a little bit more turning, is basically what I would say, and it feels just really wide, really heavy. And the Red Bull as well kind of feels the same. It feels a little bit different. It feels a little bit lighter in weight as well, which is something you just wouldn't think, but it just feels a little bit lighter in weight. I prefer actually driving the Renault compared to the Red Bull, but I'm actually at the same times in the Red Bull around here as well. Just didn't really get a chance to record it, but I feel the Renault is probably the most balanced car, and if I had to choose a car to just jump on and find it easiest to do a quick lap time, and then I'd probably actually choose that car. And then moving on to the obviously the McLaren Honda, I feel that's probably got the best traction in the game. The traction's really good, but I would say it's probably got the worst turning on the game. I would say the turning is definitely the most understeery car for me, especially in the high speed corners. The change direction is not great. In low speed it's actually okay in the low speed sections, but in the high speed it just doesn't feel as pointy as it would be in a Ferrari powered car. And then moving into the Ferrari powered cars, so in the Ferrari Sauber and the Haas that I drive in AOR, I feel in high speed change of direction it's the best in change of direction. It feels really pointy. It goes exactly where you want it to go. However, in low speed I don't feel it's that great. I even feel the McLarens and the Renault, and I feel the other cars are actually better than the low speed sections. But in the high speed, so like a Maggots and Beckett's, or like the middle sector at China or anything like that, which I could see when I was actually driving around there, it feels really good. But I feel the traction when you're at high speed and changing direction, it just feels the car always wants to get away from you. So the initial traction is okay, but as you go past about 3,000 revs or going up into third or fourth gear, it always feels there's always a lot of counter steering that is going on. And you can see by the footage, if you want to re-watch the footage of the cars and when I was doing the laps, just to give you an idea of how I'm having to react differently to certain corners and how it's pushing out wide. I just always feel I have to do a lot of counter steering all the time when I'm in that car, whereas in compared to the Renault or the Mercedes, or definitely the McLaren, I feel I don't really have to adjust my steering that much. I could just point, brake, a turn, and then just apply the throttle. In that one I can point, but then I'm always kind of like fighting the car and just really trying to hang on. But the benefit of that car is it's just so good on turning. If you can just control the traction and get used to it, then I feel it's really good. And as you could see at China in the wet, it was pretty amazing around there. So I feel you just really have to brake differently and just apply the throttle differently in different cars. So I just feel the cars are all capable of doing the same speeds and the same consistency, but I really do feel that the characteristics of the cars are quite different per engine group. I really do feel that. So I'm just really interested to hear what you guys actually think. If you think I'm talking nonsense, then tell me. If you feel it's a placebo effect, then tell me. But if you agree with me, or just tell me exactly what you find, because I know people have a lot of different opinions there. So I'm just really interested to just hear what your experience is. And obviously I'm on the Xbox, so it could be different per console. But I just really want to hear this, and this is something I could actually bring to Codemasters' attention with this video. If we get enough views on this or whatever, or enough comments, then we can actually feed it through to them. So I just want to hear your guys' thoughts. As I said, I don't feel there's a car that is actually outright quicker in pace. I really don't feel that. Like the Williams just feels like the Mercedes to me, and as the Red Bull was a little bit lighter than the Renault, but pretty similar characteristics from there. So I just want to hear your guys' thoughts. Thank you so much for the support recently. It's been amazing, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.
So